like when we did internship this January, so I did wrote an article on translation, and why and there I talked about this dubbing thing, like so like I also watch South Indian movies too, so uh, like I have always like seen that how dubbing differs so much, like I know this because one time I watched this Kannada movie in its
And you know
original
Kannada?
language. No, I don't know Kannada, but sir, I watched it even if I was not understanding, but the visual can make you understand. But when I saw the very same movie in Hindi, it was a slight different. Like I could sensed it. Like
Sense the
I have
difference,
always
even if
known.
you don't understand the Kannada original.
Yeah.
When you watch the
Yes.
dub version, you could sense that something is different over here.
Yes, sir. Like this new movie Pushpa that came of Allu Arjun. So sir, that movie is Telugu, okay. But when we see Hindi dubbing, it's Maharashtrian. Like the Hindi is like Maharashtrian Hindi. So
So
I
why
was
do you
like,
think
why
that?
are you making?
Yes. Why?
Like I question it that that when we know that how Hindi is been spoken, like normal Hindi सबको बोलना आता है, so why don't you say it in that way instead of making completely different,
क्या
like
जवाब
it is
दें आप?
Telugu. Like मैंने तो कुछ नहीं जवाब दिया sir, like I just wrote in my blog that how we should not do such thing, because it also steals the essence of the movie, because a language holds the essence
You
of
don't
the
know
movie.
Telugu, so you don't know its original, right? In any case.
Yes,
So
yes
essence
sir, but
जाने का
sir,
essence
नहीं, but
जाने
sir,
का सवाल नहीं है.
I did try watching Pushpa in Telugu also, and I was like, it looks much more better in Telugu than in the Hindi we see it, because we could
Okay.
feel the the heaviness and the lightness and the seriousness of the language, like what scene is going and what is happening. And when we dubbed it, we just ruin it. I can say the same for the Hollywood movies, like Avengers Endgame, so I also gave example of that in my blog, that there was this conversation going on between Iron Man and Spider-Man, where discussing about his suit, okay. And then in Hindi it is being dubbed, it is seen as some fun scene, but it is not fun in original. It's bit little serious, and they're actually talking, yeah, okay, fine, your suit is really good, and then Iron Man saying, do keep it.
What if Isha, that scene is serious is your interpretation, while the person who is making the dub interprets it more lightly, keeping Indian audience in mind, because after all,
Yes,
it has
agree
to
with
please
you.
somebody who doesn't know that language. वरना कौन देखेगा?
Yes, sir.
जिसको अंग्रेजी आती है वो तो देखने वाले हैं नहीं, right?
Yes, sir.
So dubbed
But sir,
films
उसको
made.
but sir, like आपकी बात सही है कि we should think of everyone, like all kind of audiences. But sir, थोड़ा तो essence रखना चाहिए ना. Like you can't make a movie completely funny, sir.
See, the translated
because sir,
just listen. A translated
Yes.
text, ये अंदर की बात बता रहा हूँ, or a dubbed film is not meant for bilinguals who know the source language. It is made for people who don't know that language. So when I translate Narsi Mehta into English, I am not doing it for people who know Gujarati, obviously. That's first thing. So what happens is that you detect that there is something lacking in translation or missing in dubbing because you know the original version, right? So you are primarily not its target reader. That translation is not meant for you. because you can understand Avengers in English. Why do you want to go and watch a Hindi version of Deadpool, right? जिसमें
Yes, sir.
10
Like
10
the thing is,
10% भी गालियां नहीं होती.
yes, sir.
Deadpool देखा है?
Like I
Dub
watched,
देखा है? Have you seen dubbed version of Deadpool?
yes, sir.
I have seen it couple of times, because what interested me was that without swear words भी अच्छी comedy हो सकती है. Swear
Yes,
words
sir.
are
Like,
not absolutely necessary for a good comedy.
yes,
Right?
sir. Like, but, so the thing is, the reason why I watched Avengers Endgame in Hindi was because my cousins doesn't know English. So I have watched that in English first with my friend, and then I went with my cousins who are little and who does not understand English. So
Right.
I was so bored in that movie. Like, you know, the emotion that I had when I watched in
आपके लिए नहीं है ना वो, तो बोर ही होगी ना तो. But
yes.
did your sibling or your cousin or whoever enjoy it? Hindi version.
They enjoyed more than me.
है ना, तो for that's the success of the dubbing, because it was made for
Yes.
you. It was not made for you. You
Like
better
target and audience enjoyed it.
And there is another angle to it. See, whole this idea of loss and gain, right, is relative to the person involved. मेरे जेब में 10,000 रुपये हैं और चोर वो लेके भाग जाता है, राइट? तो मेरे लिए लॉस है, पर वो चोर के लिए क्या है?
Gain.
Gain है. Loss and gain is a relative thing. There is no absolute loss or absolute gain in the first place. Would you agree with this? Loss or gain जैसी चीज है नहीं. It depends on where you are placed. If somebody steals my money, it's my loss. But that's not the loss for the thief, right? For him, it's gain. So idea of loss and gain are relative. Would you agree to this? That there is no such thing like absolute loss and absolute gain.
So it's always relative.
Huh? Always?
So it's relative. It's relative.
Always relative. And here is one more thing. If I rob the original Avengers of its seriousness and add humor to it so that the Indian audience enjoys it and I make more money, the seriousness of the original is not gone, right? It's there. उसे English version में तो है ही seriousness, right? So is it a gain for the filmmaker or is it a loss financially?
So it's a gain.
बहुत बड़ा gain है.
There's also a gain for the viewer who doesn't understand English, because then they can relate with others. They can come on this pop culture phenomena.
Exactly.
Which
So
otherwise they wouldn't have been.
Translation becomes loss for the audience or the reader who is not the target audience or the reader, like Isha. उसके लिए वो हमेशा loss ही रहेगा. But
no, sir, every time.
For others, it will always be gain. So translation
Yes, sir.
कितना भी खराब हो, वो हमेशा gain ही होता है, loss कभी नहीं होता. अगर आपको
Yes, sir,
loss
it's
लगता है तो वो आपके लिए नहीं है.
Yes, sir. Sir, I think like this situation is completely, you know, like balanced thing. Like we got equal audiences for the both.
Sure.
And one more thing, yes, before I come to what Ashima is saying, only 10% of population in India speaks English. Only 10%.
Yes,
if you look at Gujarat board or boards in Gujarat, then you have 1 lakh people from English medium appearing for 12th or 10th. As to that, there are 10 lakh people appearing for 10th board in Gujarat. So people who know English उनकी परसेंटेज 10% से ज्यादा नहीं है इस देश में. Secondly, even if people who know English, to understand the accent of Hollywood or English film is a challenging task, because our English is Indian English. The English that I am using right now is not Hollywood or British English. It's Indian English. So our ability to access British or American texts due to accent is limited, in spite of the fact that I'm a professor of English and you are a student of English, right? So imagine,
Yeah, there is a barrier there.
so
Like,
if you're looking forward to dub a film into Hindi, right, which forms the 40-50% of Indian population, no Hindi, 10% no English. So if you dub a movie into Hindi, you are increasing your profit at least 7 times. 7 गुना बड़ा मार्केट आप कैप्चर कर सकते हो when you dub it into Hindi. So when a Telugu movie goes into Hindi, you are capturing a huge market. So market becomes a very powerful constraint on translation and adaptations. Translation और adaptation में market और media दोनों की बहुत बड़ी अहमियत है, जो हम समझ नहीं पाएंगे अगर आप यही बात करते रहोगे कि उसमें ये गेन है और ये लॉस है, उसमें एसेंस नहीं आ रहा है. यार क्या करो, वो एसेंस कभी आएगा भी नहीं.
so that is a very surface level argument, I think.
So if you go beyond this essence and loss and gain, which is normative approach, right, you discover something very interesting happening. That why did in a particular period all of a sudden South Indian films have taken over in this demo? ऐसा क्यों हुआ? I am asking a more interesting question than asking a question like, अरे क्या ये पुष्पा में उसका एसेंस चला गया है? So instead of normative, if I take a descriptive position, then I can ask more interesting question, that why does in after 2015 there is a spate of remake and dubs, not just from Hollywood but also from Hindi and Korean and whatnot, Japanese, kya pata, in Hindi film industry, right? Because there is a shortage of content. You do that very often. And coming back to this Pushpa thing and Marathi idiom, right? Here is something which a comparative literature student can tell you, Isha, that South Indian cultures are closer to Marathi than to North Indian Hindi cultures. Marathi is in between North and the South. There is a great influence of South Indian culture. There is a lot of similarity between Marathi culture and South Indian cultures. So the lifestyle that is shown, or even dressing or clothes or food or whatever, or villages that are shown, would be very difficult to find in North India. So, and plus Bombay is based in Maharashtra, right? So these are several reasons why there is use of Marathified Hindi rather than Lucknowi Hindi, right? Or Awadhi Hindi. Imagine Banaras Hindu University के प्रोफेसर के लैंग्वेज में पुष्पा बोलने लगे, तो कैसी हिंदी होगी उसकी? Essence
very different. Like, I agree, like everyone's Hindi is very different, like, you know, state wise.
Right. So if you're showing a kind of
like in Gujarati Hindi also one can ascend, like,
but Gujarati is not so widely known, and Gujarati culture is not close to South Indian so much as
no sir, not in that way. As like I am also a Gujarati, so like if I would speak Hindi, then there would be an essence of Gujarati in it. But yeah, but the thing is that since my mom herself is from, you know, Jaipur, so my Hindi doesn't, you know, reflects that Gujarati essence unless I speak Gujarati. So I get the
there is no
benefit
such thing as Gujarati essence. ये essence है ना, कहीं पे होता ही नहीं है, सिर्फ वो आप पानी शरबत में डालते हो उतना ही essence. There is no essence. How can you detect and pinpoint something which is essence of something. What is essence
Sir,
of something?
I think the tone, sir, the tone.
But then that again is interpretation, right? Kathiawadi person, when he goes to North Gujarat, says that is Gujarat and not Kathiawad.
Yeah, but
So
sir,
that
काठियावाड़ी
so
सर
Kathiawadi.
काठियावाड़ी इंसान
So
जाएगा और वो हिंदी बोलेगा तो उसके हिंदी से ही पता चल जाएगा वो काठियावाड़ी है.
Exactly. तो उसका एसेंस जो है ना, गुजराती में भी एक एसेंस नहीं है, अनेक एसेंस है.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do
जैसे
agree.
South Indian Gujarati which I speak, South Gujarat Gujarati, where I am born and brought up, has a different essence compared to Kathiawadi and is different compared to Central Gujarat. Or if you go towards Kutch, then you will find another kind of essence coming up. So language does not have a single essence. There are several essences.
Yes, yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir. Like I never said that there was single. Yes.
So we have no idea that which Telugu was used in that film. Right? Telugu की भी काफी किस्म के तेलुगु होगा. हमको नहीं पता whether it is on that coast or whether it's on this forest side or what. ऐसे geographical उसका local जो है वो समझ में नहीं आता in terms of language, because it deals with a specific region of Andhra, if you look at it, because that is the forest which produces that wood, right, which is exported to Japan.
Yes, sir.
If you have seen that film, so it deals with a particular region. तो वहाँ की बोली यूज हुई होगी वहाँ पे फिल्म में, शायद मैं तो जानता नहीं.
Yes. So even I don't.
No, but I'm just telling you that once we start looking behind these superficial judgments, we are able to ask more interesting questions about the texts rather than taking a judgmental position on it. Yeah, Ashima, you had to say something?
Sir, the topic is way ahead now.
Topic is?
Way ahead now. Our conversation is way ahead.
Way ahead.
Yeah.
Ahead in what terms?
Like I was going to talk about how every movie has their own like way of so the language factor is very different from movie to movie, right? So if a movie is more for example academic, for example the Dead Poet Society, so for us even us English speakers, it can be tough at times because of the accent, or even more than that, the way they are pronouncing the way they are the topics that they are talking about. So we don't know about certain topics, so because of that we need those subtitles, or we need that translation, that other language, our native language, to understand what they are trying to say. Yeah,
very true. And that would happen other way around as well. Means even say for example an American person learns Gujarati and is able to understand a Gujarati film, but then there would be a lot of cultural references that he or she would have to bring in to understand. So cross-cultural translation is basically a form of cross-cultural interpretation and communication, right?
yes.
And usually you require a lot of interpretation and reference. Background knowledge is required on a massive scale. So very often when we watch, say for example, a Hollywood film based in, say for example, Texas, we should know what Texas stands for, and that comes out through their dialect and through the setting, right? A film that is based in New York or in Washington or Chicago or Texas or whatever will have a different kind of language and cultural background knowledge, which we lack very often. So for us, that experience of watching an English film is often very superficial.
Yes, sir. And so I was
That
watching
is
this
other way
one
around
series.
also that happens. Other way around also same happens. Yeah.
So I was watching this series called Radicals. It is based on Ireland. So the language, again, that accent is very thick over there. So for me personally, if I get a chance to have a translation in Hindi, then I will understand what they're saying, the context better than the one I'm doing right now because of their accent. So accent also plays a big role here.
Very much.
So because of that, translation has, yeah.
I don't know if you have read the play called Pygmalion by Bernard Shaw. And a film, very famous films were made on it, adaptations of that. Like My Fair Lady is one adaptation. And there is another very famous adaptation called Pygmalion that is available on YouTube. And Bernard Shaw won 2 Oscars. Only human
But they
person,
have, yeah,
only person in history of West to win Oscar and a Nobel Prize. ऐसा कोई बंदा आज तक बना नहीं. So Bernard Shaw got an Oscar for the script and a Nobel Prize for his literature. The point that I'm making that in Pygmalion, the protagonist is able to make out where that person is from by just listening to the accent. वो exact कहाँ से आता है उसे तुरंत पता चलता है. He's a linguist, right? He can make out that this person is coming from this part of England, right? East London or South London में भी उसे कान से फर्क समझ में आता है. Imagine, right? This is the thing that we lack, right? For us, Harry Potter is also English and James Bond films are also English, but they talk about different strata of society. In Harry Potter, what you get is the lower struggling English class, जो गरीब है, or they are surviving, right? And that's why their language is very close to Cockney English. While in more elite films depicting another strata of English life, you will find a different English being used. So all these things are lost when we as Indians just watch these things. So in order to deepen our understanding of this text, I think we have to go beyond judgments and likes and dislikes. In some way, when you watch Friends, you are interpreting it in your own language, right? So there is a translation involved in very act of watching a foreign language film. It is a form of cross-cultural translation that is happening.
And also because of that, we are able to understand the pop culture reference of their own country. So exactly. Because of that, even in that way, we are able to connect with their country, with their culture.
And when it comes to dubbing, all those references are to be abandoned for more regional and local references from pop culture, right? Which the population over here understands. For example, Avengers may refer to certain kind of pop culture reference आ गया उसमें. Now, if you translate it similarly into Hindi, then that reference is not going to make any sense to Indian audience. Yes. So for that, you will have to find out a similar reference in Indian popular culture. So that joke comes through, right? Very often jokes are based on that popular culture, references to popular culture. So dubbing involves this kind of shifting of the cultural knowledge. You are looking at another culture with different kind of cultural knowledge. So what do you think of it, Isha? All this discussion on dubbing and subtitling, and because this is part of translation studies now. Dubbing and subtitling and interpretation ye ek aur ek area. Interpretation is orally you translate. Prime Minister is giving a speech and you stand and give that same speech in German. or if Chinese premier is speaking in India, then an interpreter will immediately translate it in Hindi for Indian audience. Or if
Yes, sir.
another politician is speaking, then it can also be translated into sign language. Very often ऐसे भी करते हैं लोग. I don't know if you've seen it. Sign language, gestural language for the people who are challenged, hearing challenge.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think, sir, all this, give me, more, perspective on translation, dubbing, and subtitle. So,
Yes.
like, if next time I like work on this, then I would know that, how and in what area I have to work and how, I have to
So
compare.
we are looking at translation in a very broad sense to open up not just translation of Shakespeare from English to Gujarati, but also dubbing, subtitling, interpretation, cinematic adaptations, graphic novel adaptations, and whatnot. Okay, so we are now looking at presentations, and Nakia, Muskan, who else?
So can I do it tomorrow now? I'm very hungry right
Fine.
Very
Fine.
great actor.
Yeah, I have
Why
made
not?
mine. I will send it to you though.
Fine, fine. So tomorrow we'll have a presentation session, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Fine. So see you tomorrow then.
Okay,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
You too, madam.
Have a good day.
You too,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
again,
You too.
again post these texts, post these videos online
Yes, sir.
for revision.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye.